Shalom, shalom, Israel. I pray y'all are doing well. I pray everybody is doing well. It's another great week, another great time to be an Israelite, another great time to know that God is your God and none else, another great time to have an opportunity to meditate in these scriptures. All praises to the Most High God. I don't know about y'all, but shoot, I'm happy to have another opportunity to get these things right. I'm happy to have another opportunity to get a chance to praise the Lord. So, I'm going to take a look and see who's online today. Want to see if y'all can hear, see if y'all can see good. Things looking good to me on my end, so I just want to ask y'all if y'all are able to hear, if y'all are able to see properly, any issues, just let me know, because it's a live show and things happen in the middle of it. So I'm going to give a few moments for some comments. While we wait, if you guys could just go ahead and make sure you share the broadcast, make sure that you subscribe to the social medias, make sure that you, help spread this message, that would be very helpful. So I'll put those social media icons up real quick for y'all, and then we'll see what we got as I check the comments. All right, people saying it's all good, all clear, so all praises for that. I want to thank each and every one of you for being supporters of it, because it wouldn't be without you. The sound quality increase, or the video quality consistency, all of that is through you that is able to happen. One, because you give me the feedback as is needed. Two, because there are those of you who are donating as well, whether it be your time. There are people who are helping me bring forth these meditations. There are people who are sending forth donations to help me keep things floating, keep things alive. So all praises for each and every one of you. However you have put forth help, whatever the Lord has given you as a talent or as an ability that you bringing forth to help others bring it forth. So I just want to thank each and every one of you. Also want to thank you for helping us reach the goal on YouTube. We reached the amount of subscribers that we needed to get our own personal YouTube handle. So that will be going up next on the social media icons there. So thank each and every one of you for subscribing to the YouTube, but keep subscribing, because YouTube is going to be a safe place to house videos. Facebook is a place to house videos, and those will probably be the two that we focus on. And then also the website is going to be a place where the videos are sitting. So I pray that each and every one of you have had a chance to visit the website, midweekmeditations.com, where it's basically the central hub. If you want to make it easier for yourself to find the daily verses, to find the Bible trivia on Tuesday, to find all the videos, part 1, part 2, etc. If videos last more than a week, they're all there in one central location, easy to find. So thank you for support, thank you for the help, and thank you for the feedback that you've given that has allowed us to get this far. Now, it's Midweek Meditations, and you know what we do. We meditate on the scriptures, and we try to do our best to motivate each other to get into the Bible daily, to get into the Bible often, to constantly be thinking about the words of God and how they can take a hold of your life and actually change it for the better. Don't just wait until the Sabbath to be holy. Don't be a Sabbath-only Israelite. Some people might be Sunday-only Christians. Don't be a Sunday Christian. Be a repentant person who keeps the commandments and deals with the commandments every day of their life. That's what the goal is. The goal is to help you recharge as you go throughout the week, waiting on that Sabbath day to keep your battery charged, your spiritual battery charged, so that you can make it through the times, the hard times that come in your life, whether your check be short from work, whether you're going through hard times and facing eviction and repossession, whether you're having issues with past relationships that are coming back to haunt you, and now you have the child support, or you're not even able to see your children. Using these scriptures is going to help motivate you to make it throughout the rest of the week. So all praises to the Most High for giving us this Bible, these instructions for life. Now, today's topic, I hope that you guys have been following throughout the week. The daily verses have been leading up to the topic. Every verse that we talked about this week was about wisdom. And the daily verses have led all the way up to the topic today, which is wisdom bringeth to a kingdom. What you may not understand is having the proper wisdom is what's going to bring the kingdom. The proper wisdom. You can't not have wisdom and think that you're going to get the kingdom. You're not going to accidentally stumble upon the kingdom. You're not going to fall into a lucky lotto ticket that the winning prize is the kingdom. None of that is going to happen. What is going to happen is you're going to have the proper wisdom, which gives you the steps to taking back the kingdom. We once had the kingdom and we lost it because we stopped following the instructions that God gave us. And the way we're going to get the kingdom back, is by following the instructions, also known as the wisdom. Having the wisdom, also fear of the Lord, understanding that he holds the keys. The judgment is in his hand. And when we understand those things, we are on our way back to a kingdom. Okay? So we also had another new addition to Midweek Meditations this week. We had the Motivation Monday, where I sit down and I just give a little bit of boost in a blog format. Just a typed out blog format to give you a little bit of boost towards what we're going to go into today. Now, what you saw throughout the week, those verses that came out throughout the week, the motivation on Monday, the blog, is all leading to what we have today, which is wisdom bringeth to a kingdom. So I want everyone to make sure that you are ready for today, because I want you to meditate on this. We're going to think about these verses, meditate on them, and it's going to help us get ourselves in a better spirit, a better mindset, so that we can bring forth the kingdom. All right, so what I want you to do is take a moment and subscribe to each of the social medias, to share with a friend, with a family. And I know some of you are probably saying, I don't have any friends. Well, according to Facebook, you probably have 5,000 friends. You might have 500 friends. They may not be your real friends in life, and you grew up with them and you know them like that. But guess what? You have a connection with them. You now have a network with them. And here's your opportunity to share something with them. And do it in a manner that is inviting. Make sure that they feel welcome. Don't just send it to them and you're a stranger. Introduce yourself. If you got these friends on Facebook that you've never really spoken to, say something to them and say, I thought that I would share this with you because of this, because of that. So let's make sure that we share the broadcast. Now, let's get started. Let's talk about this wisdom bringing forth the kingdom. Now, throughout the week, we went over a couple of different scriptures throughout the week. One of the first scriptures we went over is James 1 and 5. Now, James in the New Testament is giving us some understanding on how to mature in Christ, some understanding on how to get through your trials. And a lot of us need that. A lot of us need to mature in Christ. So the Bible verse says this, James 1 and 5. Now, if any of you lack wisdom, he should ask God. So many of us, we may feel that we lack wisdom. But the reason why we don't have it is because a lot of us go everywhere to gain wisdom, except for the person or the entity that can give us more wisdom and the most accurate wisdom that we will ever come across. You may go to the library and get wisdom. You may go to the university to get wisdom. You may get on your Google search to get wisdom. But you're not getting the fullness of the wisdom that you need to bring forth a kingdom. The scripture says if you lack wisdom, you should ask of God, because God is going to give you the proper wisdom, the wisdom that you need to bring forth that kingdom. And when you ask God, God may deliver that wisdom in many different ways, but at the end of the day, it is God who decided to give to you the way that he gave it. It says, who gives to all generously and ungrudgingly, and it will be given to him. So if you lack wisdom, ask God and it will be given to you, because God gives this wisdom generously. God gives the wisdom ungrudgingly. If you ask correctly though, because I want to go over to James 4 and 1. No, 4 and 2. Now I start at 1. It says, "What is the?" No, I gotta switch to a different version here. I see that we are lost in the sauce of the wrong version of the Bible. See, this is what happens when you use the internet. This is what happens when you use your notes that you pulled from the internet. Give me 1 second while I grab the proper study tools. Okay. It says, James chapter 1, verse 5 again. It says, "If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him." It says, "But let him ask in faith, not wavering. For he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea, driven from the wind and tossed." So we have to have the right faith before we ask that question. Can I have wisdom, Lord? Well, you should already know that you can, because you have the proper faith behind it. So now that we're in the proper Bible, King James Version, that's the Bible that we like to use, the King James Version. I have my reasons for liking to use that version. There are other versions that people tend to try to use to gain a different level of understanding or whatever. It may feel easier to them, but I don't want it to be easy always. I want it to be more accurate. And I feel that the King James authorized version of the Bible is more accurate than a lot of the newer revised editions, because those newer revised editions are trying to keep up with the language of the time instead of us learning the language of old. A lot of things are getting skewed, and a lot of things are actually being removed from these different versions of the Bible. So that's one reason why I use the King James. But now as we go to James chapter 4, verse 2, it says, "Ye lust and have not." Meaning you wanted something, because lust is not always a bad word. It depends on how you use it. Covet is not always a bad word. It depends on how you're using it. Because you can righteously want something. But it says, "You lust and ye have not. Ye kill and ye desire to have, and cannot obtain." So there's a reason why lust is used here. It's because you want something for the wrong reason, and that right there is something that is not good. That is not of the righteous way. It says, "Ye kill." Don't the scripture say, "Thou shalt not kill"? So no, you should not be killing to get what you want. And killing comes in many forms and fashions. It don't always mean that you're physically putting someone to death. It could also mean hatred. It says, "And you desire to have and cannot obtain." So through all that desire, you can't obtain the wisdom that you want. It says, "Ye fight and war, and ye have not, because ye ask not." So you didn't really ask, or at least you didn't ask properly. "Because ye ask," verse 3, "and receive not, ye ask amiss." Because ye ask amiss. Now the word amiss means incorrectly. You didn't go about it the right way. So we just read in James 1, that we should ask. But when we ask, we got to surround that question with the right faith. We also have to do what? As we read in verse 3, some more, it says, "Ye ask and receive not, because ye ask amiss, that ye may consume it upon your lust." One way that you ask amiss is you're asking for all the wrong reasons. Now, I can remember a time, as I've been trying to mature myself in this walk, in this truth, that people were learning the Bible not necessarily to improve their life, not necessarily to gain wisdom to bring forth the kingdom, but just so that they could show that they know more scriptures than someone else. People would consider that, "I'm going to cut you with the scriptures." People would be happy to cut somebody in the scriptures. It was like Sports Center, just like when someone in the NBA would get dunked on, or in the NFL, you would have a big hit, an awesome juke move, or a catch over a defender. It would make top 10 Sports Center. Well, people will begin to learn the scriptures so that they can make the top 10 on the spiritual version of Sports Center, if you will. But what they failed to realize is that might have been for the wrong reason. We don't want to learn the scriptures just so we can belittle and demean somebody else, but we want to learn the scriptures so that we can increase everyone's knowledge, so we can uplift and build up other people. But some people get so excited more so by the drama, which is why you would have something such as World Star Hip Hop type videos, a fight scene, or a woman half naked or something like that, get millions of views and go viral. But something like Midweek Meditations can barely get 100 views, can barely get 1,000 views. Whatever the number is, it pales in comparison to what foolishness would get you. So it says, ye ask, ye lust and ye have not, ye kill and ye desire to have and cannot obtain. Ye fight and war, yet ye have not, because ye ask not. Ye ask and receive not. So even though you ask, you still didn't get it. Why? Because ye ask amiss, that ye may consume it upon your lust. Ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that friendship of the world is enmity with God? Meaning, you're not going to get the things that you want while you're in the midst of adultery. You're not going to get the things that you want while your God is really a worldly entity, as opposed to the God, the Most High God, our Father, who has brought forth the earth, who has brought forth us as people, and is the one that is going to give us the wisdom. So we read that in James this week. We read James 1 and 5. And that was on the Bible Trivia Tuesday. We also read Proverbs chapter 2, verse 6. Because it backs up. It's a precept, if you will. It's in a context very similar to the understanding that we need from James. It says, and a lot of times when you do precept upon precept, it's going to be old and new that are paralleling each other. So it says, verse 5, actually, we want to start at, Proverbs chapter 2, verse 5. Then shall thou understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. So one thing that we have to understand is the fear of the Lord is synonymous to gaining wisdom. It's synonymous to the wisdom. Because one thing that many of you should understand is fear is actually a good thing. You may think that fear is a bad thing when you're scared and fearful of certain things. Now, I know the Lord did not give you the spirit of fear, but you have to understand context and don't take it as so absolute that you don't understand that there's balance within the scriptures. Because if you read one verse, you'll run with it and think that's it. But you have to read other verses that will temper the understanding and keep you even keel, if you will, by having the complete understanding. So it says that the fear of the Lord, then shall thou understand the fear of the Lord. So in your understanding of the fear of the Lord, you begin to understand that fearing the Lord brings forth wisdom. Just like it's a wise thing for you to be scared to run across a busy highway. It's a wise thing for you to be scared to touch the hot stove when the red light is on. You should be scared to stick your hand in a cage with a vicious animal such as a dog or a tiger or a lion that could bite it off if you don't know any better. Those are smart indicators. Those things let it be known that you actually have some intelligence and you're not dumb enough to put yourself in harm's way. So then shall thou understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord giveth wisdom. We just learned about the Lord giving wisdom. If you ask, and it says, out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. So there's wisdom, there's knowledge, and there's understanding. It's one thing to have knowledge, but then you have to actually understand the knowledge that you have. And if you begin to understand the knowledge that you have, then you will show that you really have wisdom because you have the knowledge, you understand it, and now you know when to apply it as needed. So it says, verse 7, he layeth up sound wisdom for the righteous. He is a buckler to them that walk uprightly. So the righteous, he's going to set aside wisdom for. There's no run out of wisdom. Oh, sorry, we're fresh out. No, you always have wisdom ready for you should you be eligible to receive it. So it says, Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 4. We went into these things throughout this week. And be mindful that the topic is wisdom bringeth to a kingdom. So these things that we're talking about, they're crucial and integral into us getting the kingdom. Now, you want the kingdom, right? Everybody says we're trying to get the kingdom. Everybody is repenting because now they understand that they can actually be the rulers of this earth again. Now that they understand that they are God's chosen people, they are repenting. We are repenting. It's because we can get the kingdom. So we have to understand what it's going to take, because it's not just saying, oh, I'm an Israelite, that gets you the kingdom. It's not just putting on fringes and a border of blue. It's not just growing out your beard, but there's so many things to it. So Wisdom of Solomon 1:4 says, for into a malicious soul wisdom shall not enter, nor dwell in the body that is subject to sin. So if you have a malicious soul, well, wisdom, will you be able to gain that wisdom? That's part of the ye ask, but you still don't obtain. You ask for it, but because your soul is so malicious, you can't receive it. You're not asking the right way, because first you have to do certain things to purify your spirit, to get your soul ready to receive it. So if you want that wisdom, you got to work on your spirit. And the way that you earn a malicious soul is being subject to sin. Now, there are so many different sins, and we have to work on whatever the sin that we're in, getting out of it. So if you're in the midst of adultery, get out of it. If you're in the midst of hatred, get out of it. If you're in the midst of lying, stealing, get out of it. You have the opportunity to change and receive the wisdom should you really want it. So do you want wisdom is the question that you got to ask yourself. In midweek meditations, the goal is for you to meditate on the scriptures. The goal is for you to examine yourself, whether you actually be in the faith or not. The goal is to put yourself in a position to where you are ready to receive that wisdom. So we also went to Ephesians 1:17. It says, that the God of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of glory, may give unto you the spirit of wisdom and revelation in the knowledge of him. Now, I wanted to point this out because a brother made mention to me that this was a great verse for him because it made him think a little bit about the fact that Jesus and God are not the same entity. That Jesus, his Lord, is God, is the Most High God. Now, don't get caught up in the title Jesus. Don't get caught up in the title Christ. Understand, we know who we're talking about. Some people get stuck on the language that we speak and want to speak in the Hebrew and whatnot, but there's so many people that are still saying so many different things, even though they're saying Hebrew. Why? Because even in the other language, they're still speaking on different titles, on different attributes of Christ. So please don't get caught up in that. Now it says, the Father of glory may give unto you the spirit of wisdom. So there's a spirit that you're given, because you have to have the right spirit to receive wisdom. So once you get the spirit of wisdom, then you can begin to gain the wisdom and the revelation in the knowledge of him. That means you actually have to do some things. Once you ask, then you shall receive. But that receiving is due to if you have removed yourself from sin, that malicious soul that you have. Now, the last verse that we went into was Job 28:28. That's what we went over this week. Those are the daily verses that you were able to see. Please go back to midweekmeditations.com to check those out. If you look on the social medias of Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, you see those all posted for this week. It says, Job 28:28, and unto man he said, behold, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and to depart from evil is understanding. So as we begin to say that we have wisdom, it's going to be shown through your actions. If you really fear the Lord, that is wisdom. It's a wise thing to fear the Lord. But for us to understand the fact that you fear the Lord, we're going to see it by the fact that you've departed from evil. If you're still doing evil, you just have knowledge, but you have no wisdom. You have no understanding. But you just learned some trivia facts. You just regurgitating some things that you heard, but you're not actually making application of what is being said. So we have to then jump into the spirit of wisdom. And that spirit will then make us depart from evil. Because you come into the knowledge and understanding that you're the greatest people on earth, that the body that you have is a temple, you won't keep subjecting that temple to uncleanliness by dealing and dallying with harlots, if you will. And by harlots, don't get offended when it's said. You have to understand that any sexual relation outside of marriage is adultery. It's fornication. It fits into that realm. And if you're willing to do that, then you're willing to be what is considered a harlot or a whoremonger, a whore or a whoremonger. Don't think because it's not your occupation. Because there's a brother that did a video, and it was like, don't dress your baby like a hoe. Please don't get offended when I say it. I'm just repeating what the video said. And there were people who were getting upset with the fact that he said that. But I thought back on times where people would use examples such as, if you're dressed like a police officer, I would assume that you're a police officer. If you're dressed like a fireman, I should assume that you're a fireman. If you're dressed like a football player, I should assume you're a football player. So if you are dressed like a harlot, it would be easy for one to assume that maybe you're a harlot. But now, in the modern day society that we live in, and that's what people want to call it, as if that's actually better, but in the current year that we're living in, people think, well, just because I dress like this doesn't make me that. Well, somebody also said if it quacks like a duck, then it's a duck. If it barks like a dog, then it's a dog. So you cannot be mad at someone for looking at the appearance or the sound of something and then making a judgment based off of it. Now, maybe you're not, but you look like one or you act like one. So it said that is wisdom is when you depart from evil. That is the understanding when you depart from evil. So you don't really have the understanding when you say you know better, but you don't do better. You have to then show your understanding by your actions. So if you say that you're a modest woman that wants to be respected, according to the video that the brother put out, the black activist, then you have to then show it through your action, dressed modest, and that means I can see that you understand what respect and modesty is. I'm not saying, as a lot of people like to jump to the conclusion, that I know your life. I'm not saying that you're doing this and you're doing that and this is the cause of this and this is the cause of that. 100% certainty. I'm saying, show me that you understand. Be the example. At least eliminate that so that we know that that's not the cause. So I got off on that topic, but that was such an interesting thing that was coming up. People are really going in on it. Now, the last verses that we also went into was James chapter 3 and verse 15 through 17. James chapter 3 verse 15 says, this wisdom, matter of fact, I want to start at 13 because we have to really understand the context. We can't always just jump in, right? We got to get a little bit more than just the verse and the precept, right? It says, who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? That's a question. Who is a wise man? Who is a wise man on this video today? Who is a wise sister on this video today? And endued with knowledge among you. When I asked that question, Job just showed me the answer. That when you depart from evil, I'm going to see that you understand. So those of you who are wise and endued with knowledge, it's shown, it's seen, it's known, it's understood. It says, let him show out of a good conversation with his works with meekness of wisdom. So God is telling you that you're going to have to show that you're wise through your works, through your conversation. So your works and your conversation can't be contrary to the fact that you say that you are wise. You say you're wise, but that's just all talk. Talk is cheap. So it says, verse 14, But if ye have bitter envy and strife in your hearts, glory not and lie not against the truth. See, a lot of people say that they in the truth, that they have all this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, but they have bitter envying and strife in their hearts. They're lying to themselves. It says, this wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, and devilish. So there's one type of wisdom, and that wisdom is earthly. It's sensual, it's devilish. That's the type of wisdom that goes against the truth. That's the type of wisdom that breeds envying and strife. Verse 16, for where envy and strife is, there's confusion and every evil work. So we read in Job that you got to depart from evil. But if you're in the midst of every evil work, then you're not really in the wisdom. So verse 17, but the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality, and without hypocrisy. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in the peace of them that make peace. So the type of wisdom that we want is from above. We want that heavenly wisdom. We don't want that worldly wisdom, that carnal wisdom. Because that carnal wisdom is saying you'll fight somebody for something silly. So that's what we went over this week. If you didn't catch it, go back to midweekmeditations.com, get back to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and see that those daily verses are there, so that you can catch up on those. Put them in your notes. Meditate on these verses daily to get yourself right, because that's what it's all about. So now let's get further into the topic. Remember the topic of the day: wisdom bringeth to a kingdom. We all want a kingdom. We all want to be rulers of this earth again. We all want things to be set back in its proper bounds. Then guess what? We got to get this wisdom. So let's go to Exodus chapter 28, verse 3, and get a little understanding about wisdom. It says, and thou shalt speak unto all that are wise-hearted. See, you want people to be wise-hearted. Those are the people that you want conversations with. People who don't have the spirit of wisdom on them, it's going to be hard to convey your message to them. So that's why I can understand when people say, oh, well, I don't have 10 friends. Well, you might be referring to the fact that you don't have 10 wise-hearted friends. And I respect that and I understand that. Because we're supposed to be trying to speak to those who are wise-hearted. So then it says, whom I have filled with the spirit of wisdom. Wise-hearted people have been filled with the spirit of wisdom by God, that they make Aaron's garments to consecrate him, and that they may minister unto me into the priest's office. So I wanted that part because I wanted you to understand that wise-hearted people are given the spirit of wisdom by the Most High God, as we've read other precepts that led to that as well. I want you to understand that wisdom, even though it comes in many forms and fashions, you want it to come from God, because that wisdom is what's going to bring forth the kingdom. Now let's go to Exodus 31 and 3. Because I want to back that up. You just read there that it was about making Aaron's clothing. Now this chapter 31 verse 3 is going to go deeper. It's going to say, and I have filled him with the Spirit of God, in wisdom and in understanding and in knowledge and in all manner of workmanship. So you have to understand that the wisdom that we're supposed to have comes in all manner of workmanship. As long as those things are to glory God, they're supposed to come in all manner of workmanship. Read on, it says, to devise cunning works, to work in gold and in silver and in brass, and the cutting of stones, to set them, and in the carving of timber, and in all manner of workmanship. So in each of the things that went on in the Bible, whether it been the priest's office, whether it been those who constructed the temple, whether it been those who defended, whether it been those who delivered babies, whether it been all of these different things that were done, they were done in wisdom to create a kingdom. Because to have a kingdom means you have to have the self-sufficiency to run. If you're going to rule the world, you're going to have to then replace all of those who run and rule the world now and have the things to provide that are necessary for the people to survive. Hospitals and fire trucks and all of these different things Now, of course, in the kingdom, we can say that maybe there won't be any sickness, and we can say that there won't be any fires. But there still has to be an operation of government. And you must have the knowledge and the wisdom and the understanding in all manners of workmanship to have that. Because when David was ruling, he had all these different men running the show. When right here we see Bezalel is out here making and creating the things that God called him to create. Now, if I skip down to verse 6, it says, "And I, behold, I have given with him Aholiab, the son of Ahisamach of the tribe of Dan, and in the hearts of all that are wise-hearted I have put wisdom, that they may make all that I have commanded thee." So the Lord put wisdom in the heart of the wise so that we could do what he wanted us to do. The wisdom that we get is so that we can further achieve the commandment that God has given us. Because that's an achievement to be able to keep God's commandments. Some people look at it as a burden, but what you really got to look at it as an accomplishment. Because if you accomplish that, look at the rewards that come with it. Because you look at graduating from high school and college and whatever as an accomplishment. Why? Because what does it do for you later? It gives you better opportunities in the future. You have an education, so now you can go get a job, right? That's the mindset that the people are in. Well, guess what? If you accomplish the education that God has asked for you, then there's a lot of things that come forth after that, rewards for that achievement. So Exodus 28 and verse 3, we read that already, so let's skip down. I want to go to Exodus 35 and 26 now. Exodus 35 and 26 says, "And all the women whose hearts stirred them up in wisdom spun goat's hair." So God, for you seamstresses out there, for you sisters who are awesome and excellent in making the garments, putting the fringes with the border of blue on the clothing, the Lord put a spirit in you to be able to do it the way you did it, because a lot of you can attest to it. You never picked up a sewing needle before. You didn't know how to use a sewing machine, but the Lord saw that you had a wise heart, and then he put the spirit of wisdom upon you so that you were able to do things to glorify him. Now, you got to understand, God wanted us to wear fringes, and he told us to do so throughout our generations. The Most High God said that. But then he also told us to have beautiful garments. So it had to be an action that we put forth to show that we understood. And that action was you sisters being able to put your hand to the needle. So I want each of you to understand that the works that you do, that is part of the wisdom that God is using to create the kingdom. It says in Deuteronomy chapter 4 and 6. It says, "Keep therefore and do them." No, I want to skip up. I got to skip up. Verse 4. "But ye that did cleave unto the Lord your God and are alive, every one of you this day, behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments." So by the fact that you're still alive, you have an opportunity that others don't have. The Lord is using this time while you're alive to teach you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my God commanded me, that you should do so in the land whither you go to possess it. Keep therefore and do them. Do what? Keep what? Keep the statutes, keep the judgments. For this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations. You know, the reason why the other nations of people look at the Israelites and think so poorly of them and put such false labels on us and stereotypes is because we're not keeping wisdom, because we're not keeping the commandments. But when the Lord puts these things in our heart, this wisdom in our heart, because it was a heart that was open and receptive to it, they're going to begin to see that we actually are wise. They're seeing how much we love and care for our people, because one of the greatest pieces of wisdom that the Lord gave us was to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. We're going to see that we begin to take care of our people, because other nations take care of their people very well. But when are we going to stop being crabs in a bucket in our nation and start being the helping hand that we need. You know, one of my favorite memes that I've been seeing on Facebook a lot is, what is the first thing you're going to do when you make it to the top? I'm going to reach my hand back and help the next brother up. We have to have that type of mentality, and when we do that, the other nations are going to see us as wise and understanding people. Now, they may still come after us and try to disrupt us, because that's how they got, that's how we got in this situation in the first place, is they put an effort into helping perpetuate the sinful mind that we already had. But still, they're going to know. Right now, they think that we're just dumb. Right now, they think that we don't have understanding. Right now, they think that we're not really godly people. That's why they can take our nationality and say that they're the real Jews, when the real Jews are given by birthright from a nationality of people that came from the dust of the ground, that were black people. As opposed to someone who converts through religion. And maybe they pass down religion through their inheritance, but they didn't pass down a nationality. It says, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what nation is there so great, who have God so nigh unto them, as the Lord our God is in all things that we call upon for him? And what nation is there so great that have statutes and judgments so righteous as all this for him? Let me read that again. As all this law which I set before you this day. So the nations actually see all laws as wisdom. That's why they've taken our book and used it for their good. If you look at American society, if you look at a lot of different societies, they base their wisdom and knowledge off of the Bible. Islam and the Muslim countries and cultures do that. So you get the understanding that they understand that what we have is wisdom, but we just ain't using it. So let's go to Deuteronomy 34:9. It says, and Joshua the son of Nun was full of the spirit of wisdom. Now we got to understand, Joshua was a bad man. Joshua was a warrior. Now that ain't taught in Sunday school. But if you read the book of Joshua and you understand what he was really doing, he was serious about his job. He showed that he had the wisdom through his actions. Now it says, and Joshua was the son of Nun, was full of the spirit of wisdom. That means he was open to it and he was willing to receive it. And then once God gave it to him after he asked for it, he did something with it. For Moses had laid his hand upon him, and the children of Israel hearkened unto him, and did as the Lord commanded. So, as a wise person, your goal is to create more wise people. Moses helped give Joshua the spirit of wisdom, and Joshua helped give the other Israelites the spirit of wisdom. Now, some of them did not receive it, but some of them did, because we did see that some were able to go into the promised land. So we have to get in our mindset where we got to be able to pass wisdom down. For those of you who are older and have gained wisdom, you use it to help and give to the younger. Now, I want to take a second to find a verse, because that led me to a thought process in Job. Job chapter 12, verse 12. It says, with the ancient is wisdom, and in length of days is understanding. Now, most of the time, men get their wisdom gradually, over time, through the experiences that they have in life. And once they get older, they're able to gain and compile all of this wisdom and turn it into understanding, right? But that's a problem. That's not until you're older if you get it that way. Now, as we read on verse 13, it says, with him is wisdom and strength, he have counsel and understanding. Behold, he have breaketh down, and it cannot be built up again. He shutteth up a man, and there can be no opening. So in verse 13, you're saying that with God, wisdom and strength are there. So your old age and your wisdom don't necessarily come in that fashion. You get wisdom as God gives you the wisdom, whether you be old or not. Now, in our mind, carnally, that's earthly, that sensual wisdom, it's going to take time. But in that wisdom from above that's pure, it's going to take the open mind to what the Lord is saying. He is not wise just because he's old. And his strength does not mean that he don't have wisdom. He can have the wisdom at a young age or an old age should the Lord give it. So time and experience are less essential. I'm not saying not essential or not important, are less essential when you're dealing with the wisdom of the Lord. Now, the earthly wisdom, that's all you got. The only way you're going to get it is through the time and experience. So we have to keep in mind that what I said a moment ago about passing down the wisdom to the younger, that is a part of it that we still have to dwell in, because that may be one of the vessels that God uses to deliver the wisdom once you ask for it. So as you ask for it as a young man, maybe it will be that an older man will give it to you. As you ask for it as an older man, maybe it'll be that a younger man will give it to you, or woman, because the sisters out there got to get wisdom too. But you got to understand that you got to get the wisdom, because wisdom bringeth to a kingdom. So let's see where we are now. Let's go to Kings, because we're talking about kingdom. What would we be talking about a kingdom for without a king? So I want to say shalom to those of you who've been joining, all right? Take a quick break just to see who we have online. We got a lot of new people, a lot of new faces on here today, and all praises to the Most High. That's probably because you guys have been sharing the broadcast. That's probably because you guys have helped and put forth the brick that you've done to help spread this gospel across the four corners of the earth. So all praises for that. So now we got hold on.
Take a quick break
just
to see who we have online.
Sorry, I
we got
accidentally opened up the sound here. I see Joker Bad in the building, P Don Mega, Luda, Michael. I see y'all. All praises, thanks for joining. Wanda, Ariel. All praises for y'all joining. Make sure that if you were late, you can always go back and check the replay. This is going to be up and there for you to go and review and meditate on over and over and over again. So, Akaya, it's okay. It's okay that you was late. You're here now, and that's all that matters. So get in, get comfortable, take notes, and share the broadcast. So, in 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 28, it says, and all Israel, 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 28, and all Israel heard of the judgment which the king had judged. And they feared the king, for they saw that the wisdom of God was with him to do judgment. In modern times, everybody wants to say this silly stuff of only God can judge me. Don't judge. You're judging. Well, kings judge. That's what they do. And the way that you're saying the words, don't judge me, and only God can judge me, I hope you understand what you're saying, because if you want God to judge me, God's judgment is going to be way harsher than any judgment that a man like myself would give. God has the judgment of life and death for your soul, not just your body, but your soul. So all the people of Israel, they understood that the king was supposed to judge. And they had fear for the king just like they would have fear for the Lord, because the wisdom of God was within the king. If we're going to become kings again, if we're going to get back the kingdom, people are going to have to see that the wisdom of God is within us to do what? To do judgment. Meaning to correct people when they're wrong, to fix problems, to change the narrative of all the negative things that we've gone through and turn it into positive. That's what the judgment is all about. Because what you don't want is God to come and do the ultimate judgment and where you get condemned forever. 1 Kings 4 and 29. So chapter 4 verse 29 says, and God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding exceeding much. Now we know Solomon was the wisest king that ever lived. Our forefather from the tribe of Judah was the wisest man that walked the face of this earth. And that's the narrative that everyone knows and all other societies understand it. They may not like it, but it's the truth. And it says his understanding was exceeding much. So this was a king of Israel, one of the great kings that you read about. And it says, and largeness of heart. Because remember, you have to open your heart to understanding and wisdom. Even as the sand that is of the seashore, he has so much wisdom, you can compare it to how much sand is at the beach. Go to the beach, try to count the sand. You'll get tired of counting because it's so much. Well, that's how much wisdom Solomon had, and that's how much wisdom we could have if we would just get our minds right and get ourselves in the mindset of a kingdom. Verse 30 says, and Solomon's wisdom excelled the wisdom of all the children of the east country, meaning he was smarter than all the other nationalities of people. He was wiser than all the other nationalities of people. And it says, and all the wisdom of Egypt, because that was one of the top nations at the time. But it wasn't more high than the Israelites. It wasn't on top of the Israelites. We were the top nation. Verse 34, skip down. And there came of all the people to hear the wisdom of Solomon. Now, I want you to pay attention to that. People came to hear the wisdom of Solomon. People traveled. Now, in 2019, you will travel to go see a concert. You will travel to go on a vacation to somewhere to do foolishness. But how many of us would travel to go gain wisdom? You know, that's why the scriptures say a man will travel knoweth many things. That's why I've done as much as I can to travel all across the world to learn more and more and more things that I could not learn by sitting at my house where I am all day, every day. You got to get up, get out, and do something. So it says, and people came from all over to hear the wisdom of Solomon, from all the kings of the earth. Other kings, people who thought they were great, said, but Solomon is greater, and I'm coming to learn from him, which had heard of his wisdom. They just heard that he was wise, and they said, if anybody's this wise, I got to see it. And that's how all the nations are going to be when we bring forth the kingdom. Wisdom is going to bring forth the kingdom. That's what's going to happen. A lot of you think that it's going to be by might. You're going to fight your way to a kingdom, argue your way to a kingdom. A lot of you think that it's going to be by gaining weapons, that you're going to amass a certain amount of money, get rich in this society, and that's going to bring your kingdom. That's not what's going to happen. It's the wisdom that's going to have to do it. And that wisdom, not the earthly, but the one that's from above. 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 4. It says, when the queen of Sheba had seen all Solomon's wisdom and the house that he had built, verse 5, and the meat of his table and the sitting of his servants and the attendees of his ministers and their apparel and his cupbearers and his ascent by which he went up into the house of the Lord, there was no more spirit in her. Understand that all of these things pertain to the wisdom. The way that he dressed his servants showed how much wisdom that he had. The way that his ministers attended to him and their apparel and their cupbearers and all that, that showed about the wisdom, because you have to have wisdom in order to figure out how to accomplish all of these things. Because for any of you that have a business, you need some wisdom to know how to have employees. How do you keep them happy? How do you make them more productive? How do you make sure that the revenue is proper and everyone is going to end up getting paid? That takes wisdom, and Solomon had the wisdom of all that. And it showed through the fact that he was able to do as much as he did with what he had. Verse 6, and she said, no, you got to wait. There was so much wisdom in him, and when she saw it, the spirit left her. There was no more spirit in her. She was like, oh my gosh, can't nobody be this wise. But Solomon was that wise, and Solomon was the king of Israel, and that's the thing that we want to ascribe to. Now, of course, we want to go far greater than Solomon, but at least we have a trajectory in which we're going upward toward that. Verse 6, and she said to the king, it was a true report that I had heard in mine own land of thy acts and thy wisdom. Now, remember, we said that people wanted to travel just to get that wisdom. All they did was heard of it, and they came and to see it. Now, when are you going to take the time, the resources, the money? When are you going to put forth all of these things to get wisdom? Because traveling ain't cheap. Going to see somebody, that means you got to take time away from what you're doing. But if you want wisdom that bad, how valuable is it to you? Because you'll rather give it to a Disney World vacation than it would be to actual gaining of wisdom. So verse 7, howbeit I believe not the word until I came. See, people ain't going to believe how wise we're going to be until they come forth and see it. And my eyes had seen it, and behold, the half was not told me. Meaning, what was told to her wasn't half as great as it was in person. Thy wisdom and prosperity exceedeth the fame which I had heard. We're supposed to have wisdom that exceeds the fame that anyone ever heard about. Happy are thy men, happy are these servants, which stand continually before thee and hear thy wisdom. Now, guess what? That's got to be the way we roll. We got to be happy to get the wisdom. Even as servants, you got to be happy to get the wisdom. But a lot of us take the gaining of wisdom grudgingly. It ain't fun like playing a video game. It ain't fun like watching TV. It ain't fun like doing foolishness and sin. But guess what? Wisdom has to become my top favorite pastime. It got to be the thing that we love to do more than anything else, is to get wisdom. That's what's going to bring forth the kingdom. So I meditate on this. This is what I've been meditating on throughout the week, y'all. I pray that you have been meditating on these things too, because we gave the verses. We gave daily verses to meditate on. And we gave you this because we want to get everybody moving in the right mindset toward bringing forth the kingdom. So let's go to 1 Kings 10 and 6. She said to the king, it was a true report that I heard in mine own land of thy acts and of thy wisdom. See, wisdom is not just knowledge. It's the acts behind it. She saw things in action that proved the wisdom was there. So for you, for me, we have to say, if I'm as wise as I say I am, it's going to show through my actions. It's going to show through my actions. So let's go to Chronicles. 1 Chronicles 22 and 12. It says, only the Lord give thee wisdom and understanding, and give thee charge concerning Israel, that mayest keep the laws of God, of the Lord thy God. Then shall thou prosper, if thou takest heed to fulfill the statutes and judgments which the Lord charged Moses with concerning Israel. Be strong and of good courage, dread not, nor be dismayed. So only the Lord is going to give this type of wisdom that's going to bring forth the kingdom. Any other wisdom that you get in from any other way, it may be pretty good wisdom, but it ain't going to bring forth the kingdom. And that's the prosperity that we're looking for, the kingdom. We're not looking to be a millionaire. We're looking to be kingdom owners. And he's telling us, be strong and of good courage and dread not. You can't dread the process that we're going through to get this wisdom. You cannot dread it. You have to be happy like the servants of Solomon, which the nations could see how happy they were. Okay, so now let's move on. Let's go back to Job. Job chapter 12 again, and verse 12. It says, with the ancient, Job 12 and 12, with the ancient is wisdom, and in length of days understanding. With him is wisdom and strength. He have counsel and understanding. With him is strength, verse 16. With him is strength and wisdom. The deceived and the deceiver are his. Because one thing that you have to understand is, don't be deceived by the fact that you've gained some earthly wisdom into thinking that you have the wisdom that God is talking about. You're deceived if you believe that that wisdom that you got from that college university, that wisdom that you got from living the many years of life that you live, is the wisdom that God wanted you to have. If you didn't ask from God, if you weren't doing it in the context of righteousness, laws, statutes, and commandments, If you just thought reading a book was going to gain you the wisdom, you're deceived. And the person who deceived you, both of you are gods. God put that deceiver there for you to not choose the right way and show him that you weren't serious in your acts about gaining the wisdom. Job 32:7. Now, understand what was going on with Job. Job is talking to his friends back and forth, and he's correcting them, and they're trying to correct him. And it's all about Job's trials and tribulations and how he's able to deal with them. And as he's hoping to get good information from his friends, some of the elder friends are not giving him the information that he needs. Individually, it would have sounded good, but they had to understand Job and what he was really going through. Job was a righteous man, and he was not going through this because he was sinful. He was going through it because God had to test him. So Job 32:7 says, I said days should speak, and the multitude of years should teach wisdom. That's what should happen. But it don't always happen that way, because sometimes the Lord is going to give the younger man the wisdom, as what we saw here in Job with Elihu. So chapter 38, verse 36. So I hope you guys are enjoying this meditation on wisdom. And if you are, make sure that you give it to someone else, and maybe they'll enjoy it as well. Share the broadcast. Share it on Twitter. Share it on Instagram. Share it on Facebook. Share it on all four. Because you got to go to YouTube as well after I get it posted. It's immediately after class. Share, like, comment, and subscribe. And let's get this gospel pushing. And let's get this wisdom that brings forth the kingdom. So I see Charles Jones in the building. What's up, Charles? What's up, Father? Good to see you online. We got Selena in the building. We got Maurice in the building. We got Judah Maccabeus in the building. All praises for those who have joined. It's really good for you guys to come forward, because I feel delighted that the Lord has given me an opportunity to be before you right now with midweek meditations, and I pray that we keep this going until the kingdom come. Okay, so with that, let's continue. Job 38:36. Who have put wisdom in the inward parts, or who have given understanding to the heart? You have to ask yourself, who is giving the wisdom? Because in Proverbs 3:5-6, it's telling us not to lean on our own understanding. A lot of times we think we have wisdom because we went about getting it our own way. We said, I'm going to go read this book, and I'm going to go get it from this person. When the Lord is trying to steer you down the correct path, but you choose to go down a different path. You have to always acknowledge the Most High God in all things that you do to get that wisdom. So, verse 36. Who have put wisdom in the inward parts? Who did it? It was the Most High God. Who had given understanding to the heart? It was the Most High God. And we have to keep remembering that. Now let's go to Proverbs. One and 7. Proverbs 1 and 7. Proverbs chapter 1. We'll start at we might start at 1. Let's start at 1. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 1. The Proverbs of Solomon. Now remember, we just got through talking about how wise Solomon is. These are Solomon's Proverbs. So if you want wisdom, God gave it to Solomon, and guess what? Solomon can pass it down to you. So let's listen up to what Solomon has to say. The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. To know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice and judgment and equity, to give subtlety to the simple, and to the young man knowledge and discretion. See, the young man got to learn knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and will increase learning, and a man of understanding shall obtain unto wise counsels. See, Solomon, he didn't get all the wisdom out of a Cracker Jack box. He didn't lay on a pillow and the pillow absorbed into his head through osmosis. He obtained the wisdom through wise counsel. His father David set him up with wise counselors. His father David taught him a lot as a father while on earth. And that's something you men, as we rebuild the family structure, you're going to have to be able to teach wisdom down to your children. But the wisdom that you learn first had to be godly wisdom. So when you teach them, they learn godly wisdom. It says To understand a proverb and the interpretation, the words of the wise and their dark sayings. Verse 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Now, you've probably tried to give somebody that wisdom, that instruction that the Lord gave you, but the person you gave it to despised it. That's okay. They fools. The Lord sees that. They're foolish in heart and mind and simplicity. And they may argue with you and feel that they have this big, broad knowledge of wisdom and understanding, and because their mic is louder, or because they can beat their chest harder, or because of the nobody can shut them up on social media, they feel that they're not fools. But understand that they may have wisdom. It just might be earthly, sensual, devilish wisdom. And if that be the case, maybe the Lord will convert that at one later time. Because the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. The fear of the Lord is wisdom. And if you're showing that you don't fear the Lord by the things you do contrary, you've shown me enough of your lack of wisdom. So it says, my son, hear the instruction of thy father and forsake not the law of thy mother. As parents, we're supposed to give these instructions, which are the tools of wisdom that the Lord has given our parents to give us. Now, should our parents have not grown up in righteousness, sometimes the roles get reversed, and sometimes you may bring forth wisdom to your mother and your father. But remember, they are your parents, and you better not ever disrespect them as such. Because that means you have wisdom, if you understand that. Because the wisdom of God says, obey thy parents. So it says, for they shall be an ornament of grace unto thy head, and the chains about thy neck. So now let's go to 3 and 13, Proverbs 3 and 13. Happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding. Now, a lot of us will be happy if we hit the lotto. A lot of us will be happy if we got a brand new car. A lot of us are happy when we get presents under the Christmas tree. Y'all better repent, because Christmas is not of the Lord. We don't celebrate Christmas according to the Bible. But why don't we have that type of happiness when the Lord gives us a commandment, which is wisdom, a statute, a judgment, all these things which impart wisdom? We have to be happy when we find wisdom. We have to be happy when we get understanding. And we've been getting it, but we've been dreading it. So now it's time to convert that dread into happiness. Be happy to gain wisdom. That's what's going to bring forth the kingdom. Because what Solomon was experienced with happy servants was what made his kingdom so great. He didn't have servants that were trying to overthrow him and did not enjoy the fact that he was king. Because when the next kings of Israel came, it went all downhill from there. Proverbs 4 and 7. Proverbs 4 and 7. It says, wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. So of all the things that we're going to get plenty of things. But you make sure you get the principal thing, which is wisdom. Then you'll understand how to use all the other things that you get. So we got to pray about that. We got to meditate on that. We got to think about that. I want wisdom, and I'm going to be happy to get it. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to get it. I'm going to go where I need to go to get it. Because that's what's going to bring forth the kingdom. How valuable is the kingdom to you? Do you really want the kingdom? It's going to show through your acts. Just like when Sheba saw the acts of Solomon, and that let her know that he was as wise or wiser than people said that he was. So, let's talk about it. Let's talk about Proverbs 23 and 4. Remember, Solomon wrote these words of wisdom down. It says, labor not to be rich, and cease from thine own wisdom. Because a lot of the times we're so caught up in trying to get money that we don't get wisdom. It's not saying that you can't get rich. It's not saying that you can't have money, but your work and your labor can't be all focused there. As we see in Sirach, a lot of people, they work to maintain the state of the world, but they don't work to bring forth the kingdom. Verse 5 says, wilt thou set thine eyes upon that which is not? For riches certainly make themselves wings. They fly away as an eagle toward heaven. So riches can go away, but your wisdom will be there forever. Because when you have the wisdom, you could always get the riches back. When you only get the riches, once it's gone because you don't have the wisdom to get it back. So Ecclesiastes 7 and 12, because we're talking about a kingdom, right? We're trying to bring forth the kingdom, right? Well, any kingdom has good defenses. So 11, let's start at Ecclesiastes 7 and 11. Wisdom is good with an inheritance, and by it there is profit to them that see the sun. For wisdom is a defense, meaning wisdom will defend you from losing that inheritance. Wisdom will defend you from losing all that you've gained, because when we defend ourselves, we're defending our life. We're defending our money, our possessions, our family. Wisdom defends that and keeps all of these things that you've inherited intact. Wisdom is a defense and money is a defense. But the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it. Money's good, but wisdom's better, because wisdom is what gets you the money. You got to think about that. So if we're going to have a kingdom, wisdom is going to defend our kingdom and keep it in our possession forever, because we lost the kingdom the first time. So that meant our wisdom was not working in our favor, because we began to gain worldly wisdom. Solomon, you went and got that worldly wisdom, and your sons and all of that, they were full of it. But now, as we attain to this next kingdom, look how great it's going to be. And shout out to Maurice Hicks in the building, Daniel in the building. That's right, from the tribe of Judah. Now, let's get back to the scriptures. So it says in, let's read on. No, verse 19. Wisdom strengtheneth the wise man more than 10 mighty men which are in the city. If you want to get strong, it ain't about all the weights you're going to lift. It's about how wise you're going to be. Because you can be stronger than 10 mighty men if you got the right wisdom. You can have 10 mighty men using all of their strength to lift something, but the wisdom of a man can find a way to get it lifted without your strength, without breaking a sweat. Chapter 9, verse 18. Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 18. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroyeth much good. So wisdom is better than weapons. You can have guns, you can have knives, you can have missiles, but if I got wisdom, I can defeat them all. But if I'm a sinner, it's all getting destroyed. So you wonder how the Most High God is going to bring forth destruction to the earth. Armageddon is going to come and nobody is going to be able to stop it. It's because he's wiser than all these weapons. He's stronger than all these mighty men. It doesn't matter. And he's going to impute that upon us. So let's go to Corinthians. Chapter 2. 1 Corinthians chapter 2. I appreciate y'all for walking with me. Okay, so we might have had a minor blip, but we reconnected successfully. So 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 1. And I, brethren, when I came to you, came not with excellency of speech or of wisdom, declaring unto you the testimony of God. For I determined not to know anything among you, save Jesus Christ and him crucified. And I was with you in weakness and in fear and in much trembling. And in my speech and in my preaching was not the enticing words of man's wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and of power, that your faith should not stand in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God. So Paul was preaching that he didn't come with all the excellency of speech and all the wisdom of man. He came in the power of God. Because coming in the power of man would not have been enough to persuade the people who were being indoctrinated and enticed by the Pharisees. So you had to have the faith and the wisdom to really go in and talk to other men and get them to have the faith and the wisdom. Because what they were dealing with was a very heavy situation. Verse 4 says, and in my speech and my preaching was not the enticing words of man's wisdom. Remember, he had plenty of man's wisdom, but he had to demonstrate the spirit and power of God's wisdom as a heavy thing that we got to meditate on. If we're going to bring forth the kingdom, we have to start getting it from a godly point of view. Yes, It may be something that we know as on earth, right? It may be the physical things that we learn, but it has to go through the filter of the Lord because it has to be used toward the building of the kingdom and not the destroying of the kingdom or the continual hindrance. So verse 6. Yes, verse 6. That's where I want. Howbeit we spake wisdom among them that are perfect, yet not the wisdom of this world, nor of the princes of this world that come to naught. But we speak the wisdom of God in a mystery, even the hidden wisdom, which God ordained before the world unto glory. And to skip down to 13, it says, which things also we speak, not in the words which man's wisdom teacheth, but which the Holy Ghost teacheth, comparing spiritual things with spiritual. So once we begin to get around the right people, once we begin to get our mindset on the right plane, we're going to begin speaking in wise sayings, comparing spiritual things with spiritual things, and not always having to compare with the carnal things. But right now, we're in a position to where we understand the carnal very well. And we're going to have to grow in our spirit and open up our hearts to wisdom so God can put that wisdom in us once we ask for it. And Paul was able to start giving people that wisdom as they opened up to the understanding of Christ. Chapter 3, verse 19. It says, for wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. For it is written, he taketh the wise in their own craftiness. So sometimes you get so caught up in the wisdom of this world that you get taken within your own wisdom. And that's what takes you out. I always used to say nothing worse than a smart dummy, because you get caught up in being so smart that you're not smart enough to shut up and listen and learn something new today. You're so smart that you think nobody else can teach you anything. And then you get caught in your own craftiness. But what you fail to realize is the wisdom of this world is foolishness. Now, I want to go back to the wisdom of Solomon, because a lot of reasons why they get caught in their own craftiness is because of verse 1 and 4, chapter 1 and 4. For into a malicious soul wisdom shall not enter, nor dwell in the body that is subject to sin. For those people who have the earthly wisdom, it doesn't prosper them because they're subject to sin. It doesn't prosper them because their soul is malicious. But guess what? We got to get that wisdom thing down. We got to get the wisdom thing down packed in a godly sense. Otherwise, we're not going to bring forth this kingdom. So now let's go to chapter 6 and verse 20. Because this is what it's all about. It says, therefore desire the desire of wisdom bringeth to a kingdom. So if you really desire wisdom, it's going to show through your actions. If you really desire wisdom, you will not be subject to sin. If you really desire wisdom, you will not have a malicious soul that is so worried about the foolishness of this world. If you really desire wisdom, you will put yourself in a position to go learn it. You will be willing to travel for it. You will be willing to sacrifice for it. You will be willing to give time to wisdom, and you'll be happy to get it. That's what's going to bring forth the kingdom. Verse 21, if your delight be in the thrones and scepters, O ye kings of the people, honor wisdom, that ye may reign forevermore. So if you really want the kingdom, you say you want the kingdom, then your delight has to be in wisdom. If you delight in thrones and scepters, then desire wisdom, because that's what's going to bring forth the kingdom. But you know what? We desire bad bees, right? We desire to abuse our women, right? We desire money and rims and popping bottles. That's what we desire. We desire to be able to do what we want to do and live in shambles in this current life. But at least we were able to do what we wanted to do. Nobody told us what to do. Well, God's telling you what to do if you want what you really want, if you really want the kingdom, and your acts are going to show if you really want it. You can talk all that if you want, but your actions show that you don't want anything greater. You want to be at the bottom. You want to be last hired, first fired. You want to be a proverb and a byword. Does your action show that, or does your action show that you want a throne, that you want scepters, that you want to be kings of the people? Well, honor wisdom. So that's midweek meditations for this week. God loves those who dwell in wisdom. God wants to see you gain wisdom, and he's willing to give it to you. And that thing is for kings. That thing is for kings to desire. The people who really want wisdom, these are the future kings of the earth. These are the future rulers of the earth. But those of you who delight in simplicity, those of you who love being simple, who stuck on stupid, don't be offended when I say it. If you offended, it's probably because you're the one I'm talking about, unfortunately. Even though I can't see any of you and don't know any of you in a personal fashion that way, the Lord knows, and the Lord may be delivering this message to expose you so that you understand, you know what? I was caught up in the fashions of this world, the wisdom of this world, but now I'm going to transition to the wisdom of God. So that's the Most High gave me to meditate on this week. That's what he gave me to share with you in midweek meditations. That's why we had the scriptures that led up on the daily verses, which you go check that out at midweekmeditations.com. That's why we had the Bible trivia on Tuesday. That's why we had the little blog excerpt giving you the precursor to what we were going to talk about today on Monday. That's called Motivation Monday, because I want to motivate you to read. I want to motivate you to get into your scriptures and meditate on them, and not just do it once a week. Not make it the last priority of your life. Put God as a number one priority. Put wisdom as a number one priority, and everything else will be added unto you. Because you may think that that job is the most important thing right now. You may think that that relationship is the most important thing right now. You may think that that school that you go to is the most important thing. You may think that that Xbox is the most important thing. Whatever you may think it is, it's not. Wisdom is the principal thing. Everything else comes after that. If you desire wisdom, that's what's going to bring forth the kingdom. So with that, I'm going to shout y'all out real quick. I see Katura in the building. I see Ariel in the building. All praises for those who came through. Share, like, subscribe. Do your thing. Make sure that you are showing the people that you love wisdom, and the people that you don't know wisdom. Share the broadcast so that they get an opportunity to get it. And with that, I'm going to say shalom for today. So I pray y'all got something out of it. I want to thank you one more time for subscribing to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. Forgot about that earlier. I want to thank you for subscribing to YouTube, because now we reached the minimum requirement so that we can actually put a custom URL and actually share it properly. So now at midweekmeditations.com is linked to Midweek Meditations on YouTube. And that's where you'll be able to also find another way for you to watch the meditations every week, so that you can go through your favorite player. Because some people might not like Facebook. It might be in the way. You might not be able to cast to your TV as easily, or play it through your console, your video game system, or your media player. Well, YouTube works well with that. So all praises for that. I want to thank y'all who donated. Please continue to donate. midweekmeditations.com/donate. I'm going to use the donations to increase the quality of the broadcast, to increase the efficiency of the posts that are going out on the website and on the Facebook and all that, because there are certain tools that we can use to make this easier so we can give you more. I know y'all see the sweat on the forehead. I need to find a way to get some cooling in the summer of Texas, so that I can continue to endure and bring forth this gospel. So thank you for donating. Thank you for your time. Thank you for supporting. And with that, that is Midweek Meditations. The desire of wisdom bringeth a kingdom. Shalom.